Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mr. and Lady, I am your host, Jerm, and I want to welcome you all back to another episode of Kinetic Aesthetic. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the good and the bad things that happened this week, but let's start off with the good. The $1,400 stimulus recovery bill did go into effect this week, so if you haven't already, you should be getting your $1,400 coming soon or whenever you file your taxes. I, for one, am very fucking happy about this, y'all. I was able to put that $1,400 to good use, and I was able to buy a new mic. That is why you're probably going to notice once you start hearing the other segments on this episode, I recorded it outside. I wanted to see what it would sound like, and also I really don't have the proper space for some of my equipment yet, so I hope that you are all able to just bear with me. This episode might not be the most cleanest audio, but I did want to just get this out there because it was on a topic that is pretty relevant, and I didn't want to just hold off on this episode and end up having to re-record everything. So hopefully you all can bear with me on that. But other than that, I hope you all have a good rest of your listening experience. This episode, once again, is going to be pretty much just about the good and the bad that happened this week. I've already told you about the stimulus recovery bill, all the money we all got. There really ain't too much to say about that. Hopefully you're spending it responsibly. Put it towards something that's going to get you some more money. That's what I try to do. Hold off on that designer shirt, all the Versace and all that shit. Anything that ain't going to get you more dividends. But other than that, I guess we do have to mention that there is going to be some bad talk, some bad stuff that happened this week. We all heard about it. That Georgia massage parlor shooting that happened. It was on Wednesday. No, it was on Tuesday. He was arrested on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I just wanted to go over that. That's what this episode's about for the most part. We're going to talk about pretty much what led up to this shooting, what we can learn from it. We're going to go over the suspect's background and try to figure out what the fuck led to this crazy ass terrorist doing these despicable acts. And we're going to try to just discuss all that, related back, try to tell you what we can all take from it, and just try to get some more clarity, because it seems like it doesn't even seem like this happens way too often in this country. It's a goddamn shame. So let's go and get on into that. As we all know, on Tuesday there was a mass shooting that happened in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area. 8 people were killed. At least one other person was shot and was hurt. And so today what I want to do is just take a look at this event, take a look at the suspect, and try to figure out what is his background, what led to him doing this crazy ass shit, and what can we learn from him and everything that happened. So on today's episode of Kinetic Aesthetic, we're going to be taking a look at that. I do want to say rest in peace to all those who were killed, all those who were affected. I send my thoughts and my prayers to them, and just keep them in your thoughts as well. We gotta do what we can to stop all this bullshit that's going on. I don't know whether some of y'all believe in gun control or not, but we gotta do what we can to just make sure the people who have these mental illnesses don't have access to these firearms and just don't have the opportunity to do this type of stupid shit. Robert Aaron Long, the suspect in the shooting, was born in Woodstock, Georgia, and graduated from Sequoia High School back in 2017. Growing up, from what I've read, religion, aside from drumming, was the biggest part of this man's life. This was the type of guy who wouldn't curse at school. He would walk around holding a Bible. He took his religion very, very seriously. I can't relate to that. I'm not an atheist. I do believe in God, but I was definitely not the type of guy that was walking around with the Bible. So he was on a different type of level. That's all I'm gonna say. Those that knew him say that he really was never an outgoing type of person. They said he was shy. He would sort of fall back in the class. He was the type to sit in the back of the classroom, not really talk to girls at all. He kept to himself. Yeah, he pretty much kept to himself. Aside from being a part of his local church's student ministry, they say that he really wasn't notable. Aside from hunting and church, there really wasn't even any other interest he had. He wasn't a big video gamer. He wasn't into anything like that. So, yeah, very super religious dude, big on hunting. Not my type of person, but there's nothing wrong with all that, at least on the surface. And I say that because while most people would just see him, they would know him as this guy that was into religion, was quiet. What they didn't know is that beneath all that, the guy had some real fucking demons. Back in 2019, and this is like 2 years after he graduated, he was already in rehab for a sex addiction. I don't know how to pronounce that word apparently, so let me try that again. A sex addiction. Yes, you heard that right. After you graduated high school, imagine that. Can't stop jerking off, so you got to go to rehab for it. That's that guy. Now, according to Tyler Bayless, who claimed to have shared in a housing unit with him back when they were both in rehab, the guy was struggling hard. Even as he was going through rehab, he was having trouble. He was always relapsing, and every time he would relapse, he would just feel like shit. This is the type of guy who I guess would relapse and immediately just go into his little group prayer therapy thing, and he would just express so much remorse and guilt. And this is according to the guy Tyler Bayless. That's his name. Apparently, this dude once came to him with a knife and told him, "I need you to take care of this because I might hurt myself with it." So, yeah. Yeah, this motherfucker had some issues. And that shit was just building and building, and honestly, it's sort of not a surprise that he ended up doing some crazy shit like this. I hate to say it. The interesting thing to note is that although he was in this facility with a whole bunch of other people, it was mainly a facility used for people who had alcohol or substance abuse problems, like drugs, crack, weed, I guess, cocaine, whatever the hell people are in rehab for. And this guy is in there for sex addiction. I bring that up just because I want to say maybe he wasn't getting the help that he actually needed. Maybe he wasn't really getting the attention, or he wasn't around people who could understand his specific issues. I don't know this facility. It's called the Maverick Recovery Facility. I can't remember exactly where it's located in Georgia, but I just wanted to point that out because sometimes you can go and get help in these places and you'll just be around a whole bunch of doctors or people who really don't know how to help you. So that's why it's important to always try to, if you do go and get mental help, whether that's from a therapist, whether that's from a doctor or anywhere that you go, make sure you get somebody that can understand you and help you. Because the worst thing you want to do is go somewhere, talk to some therapist that you think is going to be able to help you, and then you realize this dude doesn't know how to help me at all, and you just feel by yourself in that shit. So he spent these couple months in this rehab facility. He, I guess, tried to get some help. I don't know how that might have went. We really don't have any information on that. But what we do know is that by about February 2020, he was able to leave and go back and live with his family again. You would think that, spending some months in some rehab, trying to talk to some people about your problems, that would actually help. But no. According to reports, up until the day before the shooting, this man was struggling extra hard with his addictions. His family was kicking him out. They say, and this is according to an anonymous 911 caller. We don't know who it is yet. The family has not come out and said anything, but apparently there was an anonymous 911 caller who let the dispatcher know that they thought that it was either her son or just someone in her family that was the committer of these atrocities, and she described that he was emotional and that he had recently been kicked out of the family home. So I don't want to speculate too hard. I want to wait until more facts are out before I really start to just talk like I know what the fuck was going on with this guy. But apparently he was not winning that battle with his demons, and his family had had enough of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, somebody who's already in that mindset, who's blaming themselves all the time for their issues, who once you lose excuse me, I don't know why the fuck I couldn't speak right there. Once you lose that family support, that can just be it for some people. It'll be just like that. All that hope that they had, all that just staying on the up and narrow, that's all gone. All it takes for some people is just that one little, all it takes is just someone giving up on them, and they'll just completely lose their shit, and next thing you know, they're out here doing some stupid shit like this. While we don't know the exact details of what led up to the event, what we do know is that on Tuesday, March 16th, Aaron decided that he really couldn't take it anymore, and this motherfucker said to himself, if I can't resist temptation, I'm just gonna eliminate it. He woke up, he purchased a 9mm firearm from a gun shop in Holly Springs, Georgia, and he proceeded to travel to Aceworth, Georgia, where he decided to commit these atrocities. What I do think is interesting to note, however, is that when he was arrested, he was on his way to Florida. Now, I don't expect too many of you to know this. I really only learned this because of the headline myself. Florida is a hotbed for the porn industry. A lot of the porn that is distributed online is recorded. Everything is shot in Florida. That Miami area, it's fucking hot out there, man. It's hot, and I don't mean that as an STD joke. I mean that as in it's just hot out there in a lot of different ways. And just it's crazy to think if this guy was not stopped on that highway by those police, he might have went down to Florida and he might have started killing a whole bunch of people connected to the porn industry just as his own way of getting back at them because he couldn't stop jacking off. Think about that for a second. It's I have a problem with masturbation. I have a problem with watching porn. I have a problem with sex. So I'm going to go to Miami and I'm going to kill all the people who make money off of it, who distribute it, because I can't control myself to stop watching it. That's crazy, right? Yeah, that's fucking crazy. So how some people have speculated that this was just due to racism, some people have speculated that this was strictly due to misogyny, and there's some people out there who think that this guy's just plain fucking crazy and probably just wanted to kill some people. I think that the case is somewhere in the middle when it comes to him himself. The way I see it, Robert Aaron Long, I hope that's the only time I'm gonna ever say that man's name again. Yeah, just saying his name makes my skin crawl. Robert is an incel. He is one of the classic cases of a man who likes to blame women for all of his problems. He doesn't like to accept any type of responsibility, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was the type that thought that women had a whole bunch of control over him just because they have a vagina. Which is crazy as fuck to think about, but yes, there are some men out there who think that just because women have vaginas and they look good and everything like that, that gives them some type of power or privilege over men that we just can't control. And while I'm not going to sit here and try to act like women aren't able to manipulate men, that all comes down to a man's willpower and to how much a man is able to really look at himself and have self-respect. Because if you can't sit there and control yourself enough to just not think with your dick, and you have to always be just thinking like that, you see a woman, you just can't control yourself, you're the fucking issue. It is not them. Don't blame women because you cannot stop thinking with your dick. That's not on them, that is on you. That's all I'm going to say on that. That goes to all my guys out there. I don't think anyone would have a problem with what I just said, but if you do, I don't know what to say, nigga. You got a problem. Like, nigga, you need to go to therapy yourself before you do some crazy shit. But based off everything that I've seen about this dude, based off what I've read about him, he's just an incel. I mean, you've got a super religious dude. You've got someone who is shy, who's reserved. He's not talking to girls like that. He's not putting himself out there, probably doesn't view himself all that highly. That can foster a lot of resentment in people like that, especially when they just feel isolated and when they don't really have a healthy outlet or a way to have a healthy relationship with women. I look at this guy's case and just going through it, I'm just trying to figure out, why did no one see this as an issue? Why did no one see this as potentially dangerous? Super religious, and again, there's nothing wrong with being super religious, but how do I say this? When you put so much emphasis on God and morals and all that into your life, it can really cause a disconnect, especially with the way sex is viewed in today's society. This is an age of liberalization. Everybody's free, or at least everybody likes to think of themselves as free. Everyone's having fun. And people like to have sex. Men like to fuck, women like to fuck. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are a lot of people, and there's just this, I guess there's this cultural disconnect, because there are still a lot of people out there who view it as sacred, who view it as This is precious. This act that we're doing, this is so important. This shouldn't be something that should be shared. You can just look at the Fetty, that not the Fetty Wap. Oh God, sorry, I said Fetty Wap. You can look at the Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion performance on the Grammys. There are grown ass women who are out here crying, saying that that is so inappropriate, so just fucked up to see that on television. And then you have people who say, "Who the fuck cares? Why are you letting your kids watch this in the first place?" Me personally, I am somewhere in the middle. I do understand, you don't want your kids to be seeing a whole bunch of you don't want your kids to see two grown women scissoring on national television. No disrespect to Cardi or Megan, because I like that shit, but I wouldn't want no kids seeing that. So I understand that aspect of it. But for me, I also understand that that is what they want to do. That is their way of expressing themselves, and it's a lot better that they're able to do that than we go back to the old days where women were supposed to just be so repressed and just be so one type of way with no type of leeway or no opportunity for them to embrace that other side. And that freedom to embrace that other side is what a lot of incels seem to have a problem with. Because, and I'm gonna just give you a little breakdown on what an incel is according to me. I don't know if a lot of you know what that term is, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of a little history lesson. An incel is the type of guy or woman. A woman can be an incel. Don't let anyone tell you any type of lie. And on top of that, let me just note, an incel can also be black. He can be brown. He can be Latino. He can be Asian. Incels do not know a race. They don't know a gender. They're just shitty people, and they have very fucked up mindsets when it comes to sex. But an incel is the type of person who believes that sex is owed to him. He believes that women are inferior, that women are the problem in the world nowadays. They view feminism and they view women owning their own sexuality as just this insult to men. They think that any woman that is out here just embracing their sexuality, they're just a whore, they don't deserve anything. And a lot of incels seem to believe that they are just owed sex, that women should have no type of agency at all. And although Robert Long doesn't really fit a lot of the general criteria, I still look at the way his mindset was. I still look at the fact that this is a guy who thought to himself, it's better for me to just go and shoot up these massage parlors that I was choosing to frequently visit, that I was choosing to go get a service done. I don't know if he was getting any type of sexual act done at this massage parlor. I'm not gonna try to put that on those massage parlors. There's been no connection to that or anything like that yet, so I'm not gonna go there. But any type of person that thinks that it's easier to just eliminate temptation instead of, and literally, I mean eliminate temptation, instead of just resisting it, that's an incel type of mindset. Any type of person that would rather go all the way to Florida and just start shooting random people, and I'm telling you, this guy was probably going to just start shooting random people in Florida just so he was going to go to whatever area where porn was frequently shot at probably and just start shooting up the shit. Anyone who thinks that that type of behavior is the better alternative than just controlling themselves, they're an incel because they want to blame other people for their problems instead of actually owning up to them. And on top of that, I'm not going to disregard that race probably played a factor either, because usually when an incel hates women, they usually hate other races too. It's not just, oh, I hate a Chad. And for those who don't know, a Chad is just a guy who actually has confidence or actually can talk to women. You don't have to be some big muscular buff motherfucker to be a Chad. If you have any type of just regular confidence and can talk to women and not be completely fucking weird all the time, you're probably a Chad in an incel's eyes. Anyone that just wants to go through all that and just do all this type of blame and just shifting it all over to other people instead of looking in the mirror, like I said, they're an incel. And incels are, unfortunately, I feel like they're growing more and more and they're becoming more emboldened. Because as we go towards more sexual liberation and women start taking more agency, there are a lot of men out there who see that as a threat. They see that as women just women having too much choice, and for whatever reason that bothers them. The mindset of blaming women for a man's shortcoming it's alive and well, and it's not going anywhere, and it's not just going to be stuck on internet forums anymore. These weirdo motherfuckers are really out here. I think that women need to be very, very careful about the people that they talk to. You need to really, when you're talking to a guy, you need to try to figure out how does he view women in general? What is his mindset? Does he just love his mama, or does he actually support women in general? Because there are a lot of guys out there who, in some strange way of just mental gymnastics, they'll love their mother, they'll love their sister, they'll love all their aunties, but when you ask them about just women today in today's society, oh man, they all ain't nothing but a bunch of sluts. They all just out here just love to take their clothes off and twerk. Ain't no wives in this world nowadays. They all a whole bunch of hoes and bitches. And that shit is really fucked up. A man blaming his addiction to sex it's a cop out. It ain't real. It's not the truth. It's just bullshit. One thing I also want to take note of, and this is just something that I recently read. I literally read this about 5 minutes before I recorded this. His church that he went to, on the Sunday before this all happened, his pastor actually was talking about the apocalypse and how Jesus Christ was coming back. He was coming back to retake his throne. And I also want to take note of that just because I think it's important to realize religious rhetoric is very dangerous in the minds of people who don't have it all together. I don't want to blame that pastor for saying this because you know what? There were probably a bunch of people who could have potentially listened to what he said who took it in a positive note. But when you say things like that to certain people, when you're talking to an unhinged person to someone who really is just down on themselves and doesn't have much going for themselves like he probably did, you have to be careful what you're saying to them and what ideas you're planting in their head. I feel like he might have heard what that guy said. He might have heard him talk about how the apocalypse is coming, how God is coming to smite all those who have disrespected his name and who weren't living righteously. He might have heard that and felt emboldened to just say to himself, I need to eliminate my temptation before I end up getting left behind. Think about that for a second. This is a guy who had recently just heard about the apocalypse. He was getting preached to about the apocalypse and how it's coming soon and how God is going to come and smite all those who aren't living righteously. To him, that is the ultimate fear. To someone who tries, he clearly wasn't living by the book, who tries to live by the book, the idea of God coming down and smiting him and sending him to an eternity in hell, that is worse than anything else that he can imagine. And so what is the way that he can avoid this? By eliminating the temptation, by showing God in his own fucked up way that he is dedicated to living by his word and to following his will. So I just want to say, keep that in mind to all those who are religious, to all those who try to spread the good word. Be careful who you spread that good word to, because sometimes they ain't going to be able to just hear it the way you hear it. Everybody interprets this stuff differently. You never know, it's the same way. Some people think about Adam and Eve and they just blame Eve and shit, and some people blame Adam. You never really know how someone is going to take something. So keep that in mind.
Message!
So when it comes to the story of these massage parlor shootings, when it comes to the story of Robert Aaron Long, what I really want you all to take away is, and it's going to differ depending on your gender. For my men, what I want you to take away is, do not blame anyone else for any of your shortcomings if you don't have anyone else to blame. If you have some type of addiction, like a sex addiction, that is your own fault. There is nobody that is forcing you to watch anything. There is no one that is forcing you to do anything. If you have a drug addiction, it's your own fault. That is the number one thing you have to remember. Never blame anyone unless you had a drug dealer hold you down or put a gun to your head and just inject you with some fucking heroin or something. You don't have anyone else to blame but yourself. So please, we have to stop victim blaming. We have to stop, well, not victim blaming, but just transferring the blame onto anyone else but ourselves. Period. And for my women, I really just think that we have to understand, you have to be careful out here. You have to watch the type of guys you're around. And you have to always check in with the men in your life and just see how they feel in terms of women. Make sure that you always try to keep yourself around men who not only love their mamas, love their sisters, love their wives and their girlfriends, they love they love the women around, they love the women that they aren't connected to like that as well. Because misogyny and sexism, it's not going to go anywhere overnight. We're not going to just automatically all just learn to just treat women better and everything like that. And it's not going to be the type of thing that's always going to be able to be seen in people. There are guys who are going to preach it, who are going to act like they're so for it, but they're secretly just going to be pieces of shit. And we have to be ready for that. We have to, as men, and this goes back to the men again, we have to hold each other accountable. When you have a guy who says some real weirdo shit about women, who tries to hold a real toxic mindset, you have to challenge him on that. Don't ever let, if that's really your nigga, you not gonna let your nigga go out there and say some dumb shit like that, because if he say that dumb shit around you, he gonna say that dumb shit around somebody else. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't ever want to let my friends have a dumbass opinion that they share to some people other than me that are gonna think differently to them. That's not my nigga if I let him have that mindset. Point blank. And lastly, I think we really need to try to do what we can to end the stigma on sex work and just sex in general when it comes to the mainstream. I know we're already starting to do that in terms of sex itself, but sex work needs to stop being stigmatized. It needs to stop being frowned upon, and we need to stop thinking about it as just this taboo thing. Religion and religious people are probably never going to exactly accept it, and I can understand that, but we need to, as a society, get to a point where we don't shame people who decide to go to these massage parlors, who like to watch porn, who like to do what they do in the sanctity and the safety of their own home, because as long as they're not hurting anybody, it really isn't a problem. I feel like Robert Long came from this type of background where he probably looked at sex and sex work as, if you're not only having it with the person that you're married to, you're just sinning and you're going to go straight to hell. And even people who aren't religious, there are still people who like to think of it as just having sex. If you're not with that person seriously and romantically, well then you're just being a whore, you're just being a slut. And that's just not the case anymore. Like I said earlier, people like to have sex, people like to do what they do, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is nobody's business but their own, and people gotta accept that. And that's just me. This has been Kinetic Aesthetic. I am your host, Jerm. I do thank you so much for listening. And tune in next week, because we're gonna have a whole bunch of more good shit, and hopefully we're gonna have an episode that's gonna be a little bit more uplifting, a little bit more funny, and a little bit more just overall positive. Thank you. You all have a good rest of your day. Thanks again for listening. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Jermster. On Twitter with 1_, on Instagram with 3. Also be sure to like and follow on whatever listening platform you're using to hear me out. And other than that, have a great and wonderful rest of your day.